Today we're exploring affirmative prayer and a powerful practice that shifts us from begging the universe for change to aligning ourselves with the consciousness that creates change. In this episode, we'll break down the 5 steps of affirmative prayer, explore why this practice works at the level of consciousness, and discover how speaking our truth, rather than our fears, can transform everything from our daily challenges to our role in the collective awakening of our planet, which desperately needs it. Welcome to Higher Reality, at the edge of understanding. What are we doing today, John?
What I want to talk about today is the whole concept of affirmative prayer. Where did it come from? How does it work? And it is the foundational practice of our spiritual movement. And I have some history for you today. What's that?
Which is what movement?
I would say that it would be the New Thought movement.
Okay.
More specifically, maybe the Science of Mind movement. But you know, I'll let all of our colleagues along this New Thought route come along with us. Why not?
Right. Yeah. So it's more metaphysics.
Yeah, great way to put it.
Okay.
Absolutely. So I want to start with some work that Greg Braden did. I think everybody knows who Greg Braden is.
Yeah.
And knows that he's a great researcher. And one thing he did for a couple of years was he traveled the world. He went to all the ancient libraries and looked at the ways that those particular disciplines approach the idea of prayer. And he also looked at what in current day cultures, what we use as prayer. And they did not line up. So
Okay.
he wrote a book called Secrets of the Lost Mode of Prayer. A powerful idea that there may well be some very commonly used modalities of prayer, especially in the Western culture, but that doesn't mean that that's the best approach. So four commonly used modalities of prayer that we can relate to. I don't necessarily agree completely with him, but I do to a great degree, and I'll point out where I disagree. But we'll start with one that's just got to be my favorite. It's called bargaining prayer, and what it is, it's we've got ourselves in a fix. Something is severely wrong here, and we want to work a deal with the divine. So we say, oh God, if you will do this for me, then I will do or not do this.
Yeah.
Thinking that God's going to say, well, if you're willing to not do that, I guess we'll give you another chance or something of this sort. Anyway, there's absolutely no proof that that kind of prayer does anything except kind of deepen the hole you're in of not understanding how it works.
Yeah.
The second one is called petitioning prayer. And that's where you're looking for answers. And that usually starts with something like, Heavenly Father, we ask that you, whatever, that you support us, that you find a way, that you reveal the highest, blah, 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 whatever it is. But we're asking for something that's going to get us through whatever we're dealing with.
So that's
petitioning prayer.
Yeah. Yeah.
The third one is called ritual prayer. And that's for atonement. And that's pretty much every religion has some of this. Probably the most famous ritual prayer would be the Catholic prayer that everyone calls Hail Mary, full of grace. The Lord is with thee. And what happens is someone goes in for confession. They tell the priest in supposedly a methodology that he doesn't know who it is, but he does. And when they're done, he gives them what's called penance. And often in the penance is repeating this kind of ritual prayer over and over and over again, depending on the severity of the sin involved, as though that will release people from their sins. So those are the first 3, and I'm good with all of that. It's the last of the 4 that gets a little iffy for me because I define prayer. I think most people would define prayer generally as human beings talking to the divine. Well, the last one doesn't do that. It's called meditative prayer. So you can probably see right away that if you're experiencing meditation, you're likely either sitting in silence or listening to somebody else's voice or listening to music. But whatever you're doing is you're not actually bringing anything to the mix other than just being there and listening. And to me, that doesn't feel like prayer, but I'm not going to argue with Braden when he added this in. We'll just call that the fourth.
Well, I like actually the idea of meditative prayer from the sense of moving into the silence to that deep, quiet space where that heart space I can connect into here's my science, the quantum field.
Yeah, you can.
And whatever the quantum field gets excited about, meaning the vibration gets excited, creates.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd like to explore that.
Okay, I'm all for what you're saying. It just didn't meet my definition, but I'm open to changing a definition at any moment in time. So that's your four that we can recognize in modern culture.
Yeah.
His research going to these temples and libraries through Europe and Asia and even some things in South America. What he found was that generally every spiritual movement on the planet had this thing that was lost, that was used way back centuries, millennia ago, but no longer is used.
Yeah.
It's interesting how he defines that. He says that it's the only one that is actually received in the quantum field and impresses our thought and acts upon it. Sound familiar?
Uh-huh.
Yes. Spiritual mind treatment is based on that idea that we don't ask, we don't make penance, we don't kind of work it out through those activities. We know the truth. We know it is so, and we say it out loud. And that's the kind of prayer that I believe gets us to a place. Now, that I'm not saying that petitioning prayer or bargaining prayer or even ritual prayer couldn't have a result, couldn't have an outcome from it. It certainly can. Certainly can. But perhaps not to the degree that this fifth mode has when we begin our statements in that, mostly saying, I know, or I am.
Yeah.
Powerful ways to declare what we believe to be the truth. And that to me is the kind of prayer that actually works. And again, he found it in all kinds of writings in these different places around the world, but seldom practiced anymore, except, in what we call New Thought, Ancient Wisdom.
Yeah, I think the thing that I like about it is, going back to source for, where these things came from and what their experience was, the best that we can get from ancient materials. But, coming back to the whole various premises of prayer, one of the things I find most frustrating about the way it's been taught in the Western world is that if you do it right, you say the right things, you put it all together, and you supplicate yourself that you will be able to get what you want. And then you do all that and it doesn't happen anyway.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it does. And when it does, you think you're doing it right. But the thing that I've discovered over the years is that we can go through our ritual, we can make up a ritual and do it. And if we believe it strongly enough that that's going to take us to a place for the outcome we want, then there's a real possibility that it will. My wife, Barbara Waterhouse, her first mother-in-law was Catholic, and she would pray to a saint. I want to say St. Columbus, but I can't swear to that right now. But she had her ritual, and she would light a certain colored candle, and she went through this whole stuff, and stuff came out of that worked. And she presumed that what she was doing was, heads above everybody else that was on a spiritual path. Where the point is that because she believed it worked, it tended to work.
Yeah.
But there's
And
no, but the design of these different modes really isn't the thing that makes it work.
right, and, from the scientific perspective, if it works once in a while, that's not something you rely on.
Not good data.
Yeah, not good for that, but it's true that, you or let me say it this way, I can often find that being in the negative space in such a believable way as in fear creates what we want to avoid.
Right, right. It
That's a
does.
form of that prayer.
True, because that's what we're focused on is the thing we don't want.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other piece of the puzzle about how you organize this affirmative prayer or what we call spiritual mind treatment.
Well,
Uh,
tell me what that is.
well, before we go there, I just have one other thought I want to interject
All
here
right.
that I think fits right here. And it comes from the lyrics of a Rolling Stones song. And
Wow.
it goes like this: you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, well, you might just find you get what you need. Now, I disagree. I do agree with the first line that you can't always get what you want because it's not reliable just to want. Wanting actually is a mindset that keeps something from you because once you have it, you don't want it anymore. So if you're declaring that you want it, then you're going to stay in that state of not having it. However, there's this other idea in that song that you're going to get what you need. I'm not sure you do. You determine what you need in your life, but does that draw it to you because you need it? What is the emphasis of that that causes it to be created if you need it? What I
Well, that's
believe is that you cannot get what you want. You can't even get what you need, but you get exactly who you are, which is your consciousness.
yeah. I think the
And
idea of need comes from lack,
oh, exactly.
and so it
Exactly.
it
So at
produces
a
that
level, it's
vibration.
holding you in the lack.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you do get is what's in your consciousness without exception. I believe that's the
Okay,
rule.
break this down. So you say you get what's in your consciousness. What does that mean?
Well, to me, that means that each individual human being has a series of beliefs and understandings on which they base the foundation of their lives and their reality.
So the subconscious mind.
Yeah, yeah, and it's there until you change it, and the only way to change it is to be aware that that it's there, some element of it, and choose consciously to say, "I no longer believe that. I believe this." And when you do that and you mean it, then you can shift and shift your consciousness to a place that gives you a different result. But what
So
most
what I
people
hear,
do, even with spiritual mind treatment, is they go through the 5 steps, they do their thing, but they don't change what the way they think the world works. They think somehow their words saying this is going to magically change it. It doesn't. That's not what happens.
yeah, and the thing I see here is that we talk about consciousness and we talk about the divine and we talk about the quantum fields. There's a lot of terminology for the same thing.
Yeah, of course,
And,
always.
and and the same thing happens when we say we got to change our belief system. We have to see the world changing so it gives us proof that what we're asking for is being demonstrated. All of this is to demonstrate in a manifesting way.
Hmm.
It's to manifest something. That's what prayer is all about, is manifesting
Yeah,
something,
get a different
correct?
condition.
Yeah. So we want to change the conditions that our subconscious mind. How do we know what's in the subconscious mind then? I need to change it.
This is a question I ask in every class I teach on treatment.
Yeah.
I tell everyone, please raise your hand if you know everything that's in your subconscious mind. And they all just kind of look at each other. Of course you don't. You couldn't make a list. It's impossible. What you can do though is when something shows up in your life and you've already decided what the truth is about that kind of circumstance, it pops right up. It's like a filing system to where once you're faced with something, whether it's complete alignment with what you do believe or it's the opposite, it causes that memory, that belief, that understanding to pop up, and now you got to deal with it. Is it different? Do we go with what we've always believed, or do we realize from what we're seeing that it could be a different way? And that's happening all the time. Those are the moments in our lives called confusion, because we're not sure which way to go. So we need a little time to kind of work through it. And everybody has that.
So you're essentially saying, to know what's in your subconscious mind, look at what's going on in your life.
Oh my God, yes. That's the only place you can know what's going on the inside, is if you're watching what's going on the outside. You can't collect data from the inside. It just doesn't work like that.
For some reason.
Yeah. So what it does is it shows up in your life. It shows up in a way. Sometimes it shows up in a way you're delighted. This is even better than I imagined. That does happen. Yeah. But it also shows up in ways that you go, this is exactly what I didn't want to have happen.
Well, if we go back a little bit and say, I see more of what I don't want than what I do want.
Yes.
And I'd say, okay, but the subconscious, its primary basic instinct is to survive.
Right.
That's a negative outcome. It's looking for a way to protect itself.
Very low level.
If that's a dominant force, that's something we have to overcome. So we're constantly searching in our outside world subconsciously for our fears. What's going to come after me? Who's going to, steal my purse or grab my phone?
How's it not going to work?
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. So that we can see, the stronger that is, the more it manifests in the world. We can certainly see that as a, proof method. There it is right there. I saw somebody walking down the street and their purse got stolen, and I knew it would happen to me and we just do that.
Because that's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
A general belief that becomes specific to a situation.
It's very hard. It's very hard for us to take that and say, okay, the outside world, we're not at all educated to the idea that the outside world is a reflection of an inside world.
No, we rely on our five senses for all information.
Right.
And it's all limited information. It's all fact-based.
Very limited. Very limited, even like our eyes. There's so many different forms and figures out there in the world and vibrations. And yet we see, so there's 400 billion bits of information that can come into the system we have right here. 400 bits.
I know, that's 400 billion bits.
Yeah, but there's only 400 of those bits that actually make it into the brain.
That's not even all of it goes into the subjective mind. Even though most of it will never be accessed again.
Yeah, no, but everything in the outside world is our projection from our mental state.
And we have filters so that when something happens, it has to run through those filters before we can be aware of what it means. And by saying what it means, what we say it means.
Yeah, which is the reason why we talk about, in the ancient traditions, losing the ego, because the ego is those filters. It's that subconscious mind.
And we've got it for some reason. I'm not sure we've ever learned how to fully find value in it and help it do the things that would serve us. Right now, it does exactly what you said, low level, trying to keep us from being in a mess. And it's always looking at a survival level.
Yeah, and I think that's we can maybe look at it from the perspective of that was great a million years ago.
Yeah, when saber-toothed tigers
500,000 years ago. It worked, and every generation there was more to deal with, and yet that instinct to survive and to perpetuate our species is still the strongest one, and so we're still today, a million years later, dealing with this ego that wants to survive.
Like our consciousness structure is like an old Chevy. It just doesn't have all the stuff that the new ones do.
Right.
And we need a new one. We need to kind of find a way to recreate it in a world that that has a generally larger perspective than that, beyond the limitations of our senses.
Yeah, because if you're driving a brand new Cadillac the way you did your 1955 Ford Tundra, you're going to have some problems.
Did they make Tundras in 55?
I have no idea.
I'm just playing. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. So there's work to be done here, and we have just barely scratched the surface.
Tell me then more about what perpetuated Greg Braden, if you know, to take this on as a concept. I know Bruce Lipton did some of that as well in his days, and Lynn McTaggart certainly did with her book that came out.
Well, first of all, Bruce and Greg are best friends.
Oh, okay.
So that has something to do with it, no doubt. I'm sure they talk all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't really recall his initiative that brought him to look at this. But I'm very grateful he did, because I found it incredibly helpful in my teaching. In fact, I was at a gathering with the two of them not too long ago, just several months ago, and told them both from the podium that I had, beyond Ernest Holmes, I'd quoted the two of them more than anybody, because they were on the edge of looking at what all this means, and were willing to take a risk at maybe ruffling some feathers on how they did it. And when you hear Bruce Lipton's story, he went to a Nobel laureate in biology with his idea that the brains of the cell is not the nucleus, but it's the skin, it's the outside surface. And the Nobel laureate said, well, that's impossible. And when Bruce asked him why, he said, well, because we've never seen it that way. Oh, well.
Yeah. There you have it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you know, Greg Braden has such a scope of all the things that he's looked at and done over his career, and I've only barely touched the surface of what he's done. I like what I've heard from what he's done in the various books that he's written. And the idea of prayer has always been and always will be something that, you know, people are really interested in. I do see it's interesting that recent Pew Charitable Trusts study came out, and it said for years, you know, Christianity and all the traditional religions were dropping like flies. And now in the last 3-4 years, it's stabilized. But the one that has not stabilized is New Thought, is this metaphysics. It's began to bubble faster and faster. But it's
maybe that's what Holmes meant when he said that New Thought would be the next great impulsion in the human experience.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's quite a wide statement, but I think that's true. It is that, because we're slowly, if I can say it, we're slowly creeping out of this finite subconscious mind that we have to explore something more than that.
And frankly, nothing is making that happen more than science.
Right.
Because science is confirming that these thoughts we've had for over 100 years are actually based in practical and understandable science, even if it is quantum science.
Yeah. A lot of which is mystical by its very nature.
And theoretical and all of that. Yeah. But by golly, we got to go there, because just leaving it at Newton isn't going to work. It's not enough.
Right. And the fun part is all of the mystical things that, you know, you find in science that have been going on for 100 years that back theories that are supposed to be very practical and are doing things in the world today. We're back to quantum computers. We started in the late 40s, early 50s with computers where it was an on and off circuit. And we've come to quantum computers where electrons carry more information than all the computers on the planet, basically.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And what is an electron? It's a field that interacts with a quantum field, and so
Mhm.
these things are like mysteries. How does that actually happen? Why do we even need to know about it?
Well, because the mechanics of life require that if you're going to create a system, you got to know how it works to at least some degree.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't know how, when we go to a light switch and flip it on, that the lights come on. We may not be able to explain that, or a lot of people can't. But somebody had to understand it well enough to put that system in. And I think that applies everywhere.
it's Federico Fagan, who is an Italian physicist, and he worked for Fairchild and some of the early semiconductor. He developed the semiconductor.
Oh, okay.
And they shrunk what used to be big vacuum tubes into minute circuits and things. And he went on to Intel and others, and still has 4 or 5 companies that he started back then. But he had an experience at one point. He's super successful, lots of money, everything you
Sure.
could possibly think of. And he said, I just felt empty. And he said, I was up with my family in Lake Tahoe, and we were enjoying a vacation. And he said, all of a sudden in the evening, when I was laying down, I got this excruciating pain in my chest. And then this light just lit up the room.
Mm.
And he said, as it lit up the room, I just felt this peace. And I wanted to know, what is this? And
Of
he
course he
talks
did.
about that experience. And then he said, from that point on, I started looking at all of these things that spirituality had been talking about. What is near death? How does that apply? So he began, and now he is in with what I call, the high research of science.
I think that's brilliant.
And
Good for him.
you can see him on YouTube, and he's got a couple books out now about his experience.
Well, Carl Jung had this whole theory on how spiritual awakenings work. And one way is that you have to move into some kind of a crisis. And I would say that feeling empty, even after you've accomplished a lot, is a
Yeah.
crisis.
Yeah.
And that's the way the breakthrough happens. It doesn't happen that we apply ourselves and we do each step of our plan and then suddenly it's there. It's that we struggle with it, that we've gone through something that was painful, and what emerges beyond that is some transformation that changes our whole reality.
Yeah. And suffering in a lot of the traditions is saying the suffering moves you to the next step that you need to be at that
Exactly.
moment in time.
There
And
was a
that's
time that I was in a workshop in Atlanta. It was called the Science of Mind Eastern Conference, and Dr. Kathy Hearn was giving a lecture. And it wasn't a big group of people. There were probably 40 or 50 of us in the room. And she was working with ideas from the Bhagavad Gita. And at one point, she asked us all to take out a piece of paper and to draw a horizontal line from end to end, and then kind of break it up into 10-year periods that would match the years we've been alive. And then she said, I want you to map on that line the great tragedies, the great struggles of your life. When did these things happen? In what decade? Mark them there
Yeah.
and name them. And when we had done that, she went back and said, now look at the great breakthroughs of your life, where something magically changed, and it changed everything about your being, the way you are on the planet. You learned something about yourself that just rewired everything, and put those on this. And she said, how many of you have the crisis followed pretty closely by the change and transformation? And everybody in the room raised their hand.
Yeah.
And I saw it on my paper.
Yeah. I was there, by the way, at that conference.
Were you in
and her
that?
talk.
Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very enlightening.
Yeah. Yeah. It was one of those moments for me
And
that I really appreciated.
I think the audience, take that, do that very same thing. Watch this a couple times and try that experiment and see what it brings to mind for
I
you.
actually have done that with groups.
Yeah,
I mean, it was so powerful for me personally that I have done it. And the same thing happens. You go, oh,
yeah,
wow, look at that. So something has to break or die for the new thing to be born,
yeah.
and
Agreed.
that's not a new idea, but it certainly is a powerful idea.
True, true. So back to Greg Braden's original material and what he worked on.
Right.
And I haven't read the book yet. You've read the book. Tell me, what's the essence of what you got from that in a small amount of time?
That our focus changed over the centuries.
Hmm.
That we went from actually being the powerful spiritual beings that we are to requiring the support or encouragement or backup of a deity. And that was, if you look at it closely, you'll see that that's a great way to try to control the masses.
Yeah,
Saying you need this system that we're giving you of doing it this way so that you can have a good life, but we're going to control all of that information. And I'm not saying that everybody in that was devious. I think maybe some of it just happened naturally,
yeah,
but who controls a group that are told that all they have to do is know that something is so and it's so? It's kind of
yeah.
contrary to having any kind of organizational control. That means everybody can just do what they want.
Yeah, I think if I look at a possible progression is that it doesn't start out necessarily as a control structure. It starts out as a structure to get a mass of people who are ignorant of what it is that they want to know or need to know to help their lives.
Mhm.
And in order to deal with masses, you're dealing with, got to have some rules as to how this works. And then you got to go to the next step. And pretty soon, that old ego is going, hey, I could survive very well on controlling all of these people. um,
Absolutely. I'm
it's
sure
just a way of
that
saying,
happened over and over again.
yeah. And we know from a lot of the religious institutions that's what's happened is there's been the offshoots that have simply been a way of controlling people and getting more money or greed or whatever it is that's going on. It's an offshoot that's happened. Look at the Catholic Church and some of the popes. I mean, there were popes that were just as vicious as any
Well,
world
that's
dictator.
how you dealt with your enemies. You killed them,
Yeah,
and it didn't matter if it was a church or who. But
yeah.
the whole Inquisition in Europe was based on that. If
Oh
you
yeah,
don't see it
million.
the way we do, then you are aligned with the devil and you're going to die and go to
Yeah.
hell. You know.
Now we're back to the Rolling Stones.
That's great.
All
So
right.
logically for me, we go from this idea of having an alignment with spirit, not dualistically, but that there's only one thing going on and that we are aware of who we are in this process. We claim our divinity, we claim our ability to influence the law of spirit, and the outcome that is created through that is the condition, whatever it is that we are calling into our lives. And if we believe that and it aligns with everything else about our lives, we can have it. Now, there's 5 steps in what we call spiritual mind treatment that we teach in Science of Mind. I've seen as many as 12 steps,
Yeah.
but that really seemed very confusing to me. 7 steps was pretty predominant for a while in some groups, but truly the 5 steps is what seems to hold. So, can I go through them? Is that all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So the first step, the first thing to know is that you must recognize this creative force of the universe, not a God person,
Yeah.
but to recognize that there's a structure to the universe in a way that we are actually able to be players in the game, that we can influence that, but only because there is this divine presence that is everywhere and always, is absolute, is all knowing, all powerful, all being, beyond time and space. When we do our best to recognize that this present exists and exists always. That's the first step. The second step, which
Well, wait.
go ahead.
A question here that might
Sure.
help for clarity. That first step of recognizing the divine and the all-powerful and everything. I mean, a lot of that language harkens back to my Christian upbringing, but
it could.
The idea of recognizing that is ourself, the I am, that's the most difficult thing, I think, and the biggest step or hurdle we have to get through.
I've seen people struggle with it. I've seen
Yeah.
people shake their heads no, that they're not gonna do that. And I would make a little joke out of it. I would say to everyone, now you have to start with the first step of recognition, because if you go to the second step, which is where you're recognizing beyond this universal, infinite, eternal presence, that that being so, that must be you too, along with everything else, which kind of neutralizes this idea of having any superiority. It's only a question of, are you aware of it and can you use it? Now, what Holmes had two names for it. And most people have accepted that the name for the second step is unification. I've always not struggled, but I've kind of scratched my head at that how does one unify with something that is a unity? You can be aware of it, but you can't really, there is no action of unifying.
Right.
So what we can do, though, that really does work for me, is instead of calling it unification, call it identification. Identify with that presence. And that changes the formula. It's not like I'm trying to find it and connect with it. I'm saying it's everywhere and everything, so I must be a part of it. There's actually some logic to that.
But why do I need to do that if the first step is that I know that the divine is me?
Because you're still objectifying and you're doing it in a dualistic way of thinking. That's why you have to do it. And you want to.
Well, then you've got a circle there. You're going, so there's only one mind and one power in the universe, and I must be it. Okay, that's duality. So I got to come back to this again and go, oh, I'm the one. And if I'm the one, there's nothing else I need to do.
That's dualistic thinking.
It's what you're doing in that process.
Well, no, only if you still stay in a state of dualism. If you think that God and you are not the same and are being somehow unified through your thinking, then you're playing a dualistic game. There's only one thing going on. It's everything and it's me, all at the same time.
Yeah, but I think that's a different way of saying what I was trying to get at. Is if we have to go to step 2, if we're saying we are it, why am I having to unify with it? Why am I having to identify with it? We're still playing that object-subject game, right?
No, I don't think so, because identifying is saying, this is the way it is. It's not that I'm doing something. Unification sort of gives you the idea that you're bringing things together.
Yeah.
Where identifying is, say, this is the way it is.
I do like identifying.
Again, kind of just a logical thought that if God is all there is, then I can't be anything else, nor can anything else. It's all one thing.
It's an argument to the ego, is essentially what it is. It's an argument to the ego that if there's only one in the universe, then I must be part of it. There's no other way to go to it.
Even playing to being part of it falls short.
Of course, but we have
taught that we are all of God.
But there has to be a concession to the language that we use, because it can't really.
No, the language never really takes us to the place we want. But this is what we got right now. So I like to call it identification. I identify myself as that presence.
Okay.
And truly, I'm identifying everything as that presence. So there's a very blurred line between the first step and the second step. But words that I will say in a treatment that really help me as to the point of all that is that we mostly think of ourselves as very limited beings, that we have a scope of authority in our lives. But if you go beyond that, it's not there. So what I like to say, especially after I learned what Troward had to say about the fact that a unity requires that at every point of the unity, the entire unity exists. That one blew my mind, and I wanted that to be. So I came up with thoughts like, and that being so, I speak the word of God. I speak with the authority of the divine. And by saying that, I'm suddenly aware of this power that I am in a way that I can apply it in a much more grand way than to just hope that somebody can hear me. Because God can hear us because we can hear us. We know what our thoughts are. And that's how God knows, because there's no difference. There's no separation. So that's steps 1 and 2. Incredible. That's the work. People, I believe, especially with step 1, spend their entire lives in monasteries and temples around the world trying to get this through their thick skulls. So that's really important. Those 2 first steps.
Yeah.
So why are we doing this? Why are we doing these steps? Because we have some motivation to change a condition, whatever it is. I teach that there are 4 pillars of our lives. There's health, there's our wealth, there's our relationships, and our self-expression. And that virtually everything we can be involved in falls into at least one of those, sometimes all of them, or anything in between. So what is this third step? The third step has a number of names as well. Some people call it affirmation. Some people call it declaration. I have a different word that I really like, and I think it changes the whole scope, the whole sense of this third step. And it's realization. And if you think about it, when you use that word in any of its forms, it's like, oh, I just realized.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't make anything happen by doing that other than I became aware. And that's really important, but I didn't try to manipulate anything. I didn't try to overpower anything. I just realized that this was so. This thing, this condition that I haven't been able to see in my life, but I'm now saying, yeah, it's there. It's always been there. And if we can get that clear, knowing that it's there, the universe, it's irresistible for them to fulfill that, to create that form, that outcome through what we're thinking. As Holmes says, we impress it upon the law. And all we're doing with impressing it upon law is thinking it. There's no more activity than that. So we recognize the divine as best we can. You never get there. You're always working on it. You identify that this includes you and everybody else. Nobody's outside the circle. I tell people on step 2 that if you start at step 2 and call yourself God, they will lock you up.
Yeah.
But if you use the logic of saying there is a divine creative force in the universe, and it's me in there too, not a part of it, all of it. And when you can get that, we can get that through our minds and make that work. The idea of realizing that something is so comes kind of easy. And when it does, we've done the work. And Holmes only did the 3 steps. That was his way. If you read the original Science of Mind textbook, he has a bunch of examples of treatments. And once that realization is known, you're done. It was actually one of his students, a minister up in Oakland named Orrin Mullen, that came up with this idea that we needed to add a couple of extra steps. And frankly, I love them. And Holmes did too. So because he said, go for it. So what has become normal is that we have a 4th step called gratitude or thanksgiving. And that step is fascinating to me. Having my academics all wound up in psychology, I believe that psychology is the game in the 4th step. You've just declared or affirmed or realized that something is so in your life. And then you give thanks for it. Think about when you give thanks for something. You give thanks when you've got it. Now you can thank someone for promising to do something, but you've already got their promise, so you thank them for it. So whatever it is you're being grateful for, it's already there. So when you say your Thanksgiving, and some people don't teach it like I do, they say, fill that space with all the things in your life you're grateful for. That's fine. That's lovely. No problem. But you must, above all else in the fourth step, include the thing that you just declared in the third step.
Yeah, I see, for me, gratefulness less about giving thanks for something, and I see gratefulness as the open heart as opposed to reciprocation.
It is the heart step. Absolutely.
And those steps have opened my heart, and I recognize it.
Anyone that looks at the metaphysical principles realizes that you got to include the heart in it. In fact, people like Braden are all caught up in this thing called heart math.
Yeah.
And this event I was at with him a few months ago, he actually was teaching us how to ask our heart. And I think that's cool. And a lot of teachers will say you must bring your heart and your mind together to create the outcomes in your life. And I can't argue with that. It really works.
It did. I've done several of the courses there. And in fact, here in Mexico, the founder of Heart Math came down and spent a week with him and her. And it was really interesting and intriguing what they were doing. And he was a unity minister early in his career.
Well,
but the science behind what Heart Math is talking about is what intrigued me, because it was a group of scientists out in California, Monterey area, that were doing this stuff, going, "Wow, this is amazing."
Yeah.
And exactly. So I that's beautiful work that they do.
It is. It's great work. It's great work, and it's something for all of us to look at. And I've got another thing that I'm going to talk about once this is done. I hope we have time. I have no idea where we are with time. But the fifth step is called release. Yeah. And that's more powerful than I think most people get. And that's the idea. You've recognized the divine. You've identified yourself as that presence along with everything else. You've realized that some outcome is already so, and you've given thanks for it. What's left? Get out of the way. Get out of the way so that this thing that you have done all this good work on can actually happen.
Yeah.
Because if you hang on to it, then it can only succeed to the level of your understanding. Where if we release it into the mind of God, which knows everything, the methodology for that to become so is infinite.
Yeah.
We have no idea the possibilities. And often we're dazzled when something happens and how it happened. It doesn't make sense to us. So if we try to hang on to it and say it must happen this way, we're not releasing. No. But by releasing, we're getting ourselves and our thoughts and our limitations out of the way, allowing the allness of spirit, of which we are completely a part, but we have the power to put the brakes on or put the blocks in and say, that's probably really not going to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a powerful step, and I'm really glad Moen came up with it. It made the thing, it really rounded it all up.
It's perfect, and it's that old statement, "Ego, get behind me."
Exactly, exactly. I think Jesus called it the devil or Satan.
Well, yeah, Satan.
Same thing, right?
I love the terms that they used back then.
Absolutely.
Even Satan was not a name that replicated into devil. It's, that's all just fun and games.
Oh, I know. You let enough people in on how it's structured, and you get a menagerie.
So where can people find some more information about this type of thing?
Well, I'm going to do a little self-promotion right now.
Yeah.
So what I've learned over the past, I've been working on this for 50 years, to recognize within me that the thing that doesn't really come into spiritual mind treatment, when you say that thing that we get who we are, is who are we? And I'm not talking about the physics of that. I'm not talking about these higher states of consciousness. I'm talking about where we are every day. Why are we on this planet? Why did each of us take this step to be here? We did not come here to get something, because every one of us leaves without anything. So it's not about that. I believe it's about how we can make this world a little better, a little more enjoyable, a little more understandable, whatever it is. And we all have our way of doing that. And it's always different. We may even write the same words down, but they're not the same because we're not all the same. We're all finding our own way. So I've put together a retreat designed way of looking at different levels of understanding, to use a practice that I use every day of my life. And it's my spiritual practice to actually start with a statement of why I believe I'm here, my purpose. To go from there into what are the highest level values that I prize in my life. And then to go from there into understanding what my resources are that I can rely on in life, who my models are of other people that have really shown me how to live my life. What am I grateful for? Can I write it all down or write the big parts down and review those daily? And what I found is this thing that I've created took me years to come up with, but the process only takes about 12 minutes in the morning. And that includes the treatment. Because I do this process, I go through it from purpose to gratitude, not as a treatment, but as just to remember who I am, to remember why I'm here, to remember all the good in my life.
Yeah.
And from that sense of who I am through all of that, I speak my word in a treatment, and it brings it all together. And for, being able to spend that short amount of time every day, it's an investment that I find incredibly valuable. So starting in 2026, I'm going to be offering this at different places around the country. I'm speaking with colleagues and asking that I be booked into their work in their communities to come in and do a Friday night and an all-day Saturday and take people through this process, help them develop at least the beginnings of these different elements so that they can begin using it every morning. I do it in the morning. I think you could equally do it at night, but I'm a morning person, so I like to wake up and do this. And that's one of my big plans for 2026 is to start this work. And I've already got some of these booked. And when I've taught this in my own personal community, I've always been told that it's one of the most powerful things they've learned from me. So I'm hoping to have more and more people have that opportunity to learn about this.
That's great. Have you got a book about it?
Well, no. I've got a handbook that is filled with a lot of blanks that need to be filled in. But I am working on my third book, which strangely is somewhat of a memoir. And it starts when I had my first awakening, my first spiritual awakening. The book's called Spirit's Awakening. And what it's about is I'm using my story. And at the end of each chapter in this book, and it appears to have 17 chapters, but I haven't given it to my publisher yet, Larry. So we'll see. But right now it's got 17 chapters. And at the end of each chapter, it's got a section that kind of takes what I've said about my own life and reframes it as this is for everyone. Anyone and everyone can have these kinds of shifts in their life. And I even explained to them from the work of Carl Jung that this idea of awakening is not a light, frilly, happy always thing, that it can be tough. And some hard things are going to happen along the way. But what will come out of that will be greater than anything you imagine. So that I think kind of supercharges this whole idea of spiritual mind treatment.